All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. This episode isn't quite as fresh as we had originally planned. Well, we're only a week late on it, so it's not too bad. We are talking about another brand new movie, which is a first. Another remake, even though I've been seeing a lot of people trying to claim that this technically isn't a remake. I don't know how you would do that. They're trying to use the new buzzword, the whole reboot. You know, like, oh, no, it's not a remake, it's a reboot. But anyway, we're talking about 2019's Child's Play.
Yeah, and it's an Orion Pictures film, which was kind of cool to see that old classic Orion logo go up on the screen. I don't remember when they went out of business, but I remember it was kind of a big deal that, didn't they go bankrupt or something?
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know if they did that out of, they resurrected the company just to put the name on there for some odd reason. I don't know. It was kind of... I mean, I knew that... that was one of the things I knew about this going into it, that it was an Orion Pictures movie, but other than that...
Because that's the only reason because Orion, for whatever reason, owns the rights to Child's Play, and somehow, Mancini and whatever he's probably got like a production company or something, own the rights to like the Chucky, thing as well. So it's like these two. It's kind of one of those weird things where these two entities own the same property basically, and that's how we got this remake. Plus, we've also got Mancini's Child's Play streaming TV show that's supposed to be coming out soon, and I think that one's called Chucky, actually.
Yeah, it's actually, that was the one thing I was kind of surprised in this, was that they did use the name Chucky. It is what it is, but I was actually kind of surprised that, because I didn't think that they were going to be allowed to do that, because you'll notice after Child's Play 3, none of the Child's Play movies are called Child's Play. They're all like, Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, all of that stuff. So I was actually a little surprised that they were able to use the name Chucky in it. I mean, yeah. The whole licensing thing is weird. Well, I mean, look at the whole Friday the 13th debacle that's going on.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to bring that up, and that too, like, the weird thing with the titles, like, because Paramount owned Friday the 13th, and then when New Line took over, they did Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, Jason X, Freddy versus Jason. They couldn't use, I don't think they could use the Friday the 13th logo up until the remake, and that was because Paramount somehow got involved in that, and they were able to use some of the elements of the original franchise that they couldn't use before, like, I think the mother and some, because they do that whole little beginning scene where it kind of recaps what happened to Jason, and I think all that stuff was property of Paramount. So it's kind of the same thing with like the Chucky thing now.
Yeah, it's weird. You never really had like confirmation, or maybe there was out there, because I wasn't like reading too much into it. I never really saw any place that it was definitively the doll's name was gonna be Chucky. Because there was a lot of speculation that it was going to be Buddy and all this other stuff, or maybe even something else. And
that's what I thought at first, was it was going to be called Buddy, because they changed it from the good guy dolls to the Buddy doll or whatever. But yeah, I thought for sure that the Chucky name wasn't going to be used. I was pretty surprised when you hear it in the trailers, and I think you said something like, well, it's probably him referring to something else.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I do remember. Yeah, they do say something about Chucky in one of the trailers, and that was what I was thinking, too, was like, oh, maybe some other character is named Chucky or something, and they just throw it in there just to throw you off. But
Right.
Of course, trailers aren't really good about throwing people off anymore. It seems like they usually give a lot of stuff away in the trailers.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of times they wreck stuff.
They totally destroyed Pet Sematary remake for me. I mean, I go on the record as saying I did like that movie, but I really would have liked to go into it not knowing the big surprise.
Oh, right, yeah, which wasn't a surprise at all. But
not at all once you see the trailer.
That always reminds me of when The Force Awakens came out and Target or whoever it was, or Walmart or whoever it was, had the commercials, and the girl was like dressed up as Rey, and then she's like using the Force in the commercial like 2 months before the movie comes out, and you're like, oh,
Right.
are you serious?
Absolutely. Yeah, that gave it away. Also, the Halloween 2018, basically the trailer is the entire movie. Like you can pretty much piece together everything that's going to happen in the movie once you watch the trailer.
Oh, if I could go back and only watch the trailer of Halloween 2018.
Yeah, I still that was definitely a disappointment.
And I would even, the trailer of Halloween and Pet Sematary 2. If I could just go back to both of those and only have seen the trailer, I'd be fine with that. So this movie had, when it was first announced last year as another remake, there was a lot of people, and us were, we were included in that mix as well, that were like, oh, come on, can't anything be left alone? Come up with some original ideas. And then when it came out, there was, like with anything, there was a bunch of mixed reviews on it. There was a lot of people that were saying like, oh, it's great. And, and then you have the people that are like, it's better than the original. But then you also had this other group of people that you don't get this side of it too often with remakes. But there was a lot of people that were like, well, actually, it's better than I thought. But I really kind of wish it wasn't a Child's Play movie, that it was something else, and then it probably would have been even better than what I thought. And I gotta say, I kind of actually am falling into that camp a little bit. Well, we'll have to get through the whole episode here, but I will say that I do kind of wish that this movie was not called Child's Play, and they took maybe a little bit of a different sort of, instead of having a killer doll, if they took a different angle on it a little bit, some sort of other, anymore you could have done, you could have had an app on somebody's smartphone or something, and, that would be kind of lame, but, something like that, something that's controlled by, hell, anymore you could have had, like an Alexa type thing, which kind of this movie was kind of doing a little bit. But then I think it would have been way better of a movie. Although, with that said, I don't think that this necessarily is a movie that deserved a theatrical release. It almost was something that you would come across on like Netflix or Amazon or something. You're digging through there on Friday night after a long week at work, and you're just looking for something stupid to watch, and you come across this AI horror movie, and you're like, I'll give it a shot. And then you sit there for an hour and a half, and you're like, oh, it wasn't horrible. I'll probably never watch it again, but
I totally went into it with like, kind of expectations, it was like one of those movies where I'm not like a huge Child's Play franchise fan. I like the first one. I probably like all of them to some degree. I don't remember Seed of Chucky very well, but I thought Bride of Chucky was kind of a cool, switch. And it's just a very entertaining film. I like the new one, not the Cult of Chucky. I didn't care for that one as much, but the one before that, The Curse of Chucky, that Netflix film, I thought that was great. But I've never been a huge Chucky fan. So like, to me, like, I guess like the idea of them remaking this, it didn't bother me because I was like, okay, it's Chucky, they've kind of been doing this forever. They've been making these movies, gosh, for so long now, and they keep churning them out. So I kind of went in with that kind of attitude. And actually I walked out and I was like, I understood kind of what they were doing. And it was a different take on it, instead of having the whole idea of like in the original film where it's Charles Lee Ray is this killer, and he puts his soul through like this voodoo occult stuff into this doll. In this one, it's this AI robot doll that basically becomes self-aware and is smart and kind of feeds into its environment. And if it's like watching a horror movie, like in the scene where it's watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, it starts to kind of connect with the violence, and And so it's learning how to act based on its environment, and its whole idea is to protect its friend, which is the Andy character. So, going into it, it's completely a different take on the character. One of the things, like, I know a lot of people who probably were Chucky fans, like, walked out of this thing saying, that wasn't Child's Play. And I get it, because it's, you think of Chucky as a sort of wisecracking gangster kind of horror character, whereas this is all about like a programmed artificial intelligence, and it even has more of like a, doesn't really know what it's doing. It's doing it more because it thinks it's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Which goes completely opposite of Chucky. It would be kind of like if they took they redid Freddy, and instead of him being who he is, they turned him into a robot, and he was like trying to protect Nancy or something. I mean, everybody like, what the hell is this? So I totally get the backlash.
That was one of the things that I didn't like about the movie, is not that the way that he was. I guess we go ahead and say this at this point if you're listening this far in, but spoiler alert, because I don't think we'll give away the end necessarily. I mean, even though the end shouldn't be a shock to anybody. And not that this is really that much of a spoiler. I mean, this is the opening scene of the movie. But there were certain things in this movie that were kind of, it's like haphazard, like, well, we gotta somehow make this work. So, well, let's just do this. But the opening of the movie is this toy factory where they're making these buddy dolls at this, whatever it is, the Kazlan or whatever it was, company, which is like all of this, like I was saying before, all of this sort of like connected Wi-Fi stuff, your thermostat, your water heater, your refrigerator, your television, your stereo system, all of this stuff is connected. It's like almost like a Google system or an Alexa type of thing. This buddy doll is able to interact with all of this stuff. So, but the opening scene is this guy is like putting together this doll in wherever it was at. I don't know if they really said where it was at, but it was like in a like Japan or China or something. Probably China, I would assume. And this guy comes up to him, who was assumingly his boss, and is like, "You're a piece of crap. You're fired. Get out of here after you finish putting that doll together." And the guy, and then the guy's like pissed off, and so then he turns all the safeguards off on this doll, and then puts the doll together, and then they never like went back. And then that was the next scene in that. Did that make any sense? Was that same guy jumping off of the building?
That is what I took from it. Yeah. Basically, the guy committed suicide.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden he felt bad, or I don't know. It was kind of weird. Going from that to later on in the film, like you had said, that's basically what happens is, it starts off with Chucky's trying to make his buddy happy. So like when they're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, when they're all laughing when all the violence is happening, he's like, "Oh, this will make them happy," kind of a thing. And then, but there was a bunch of other kind of stuff with the movie. Some of it, like, you kind of like, that doesn't really make sense. Like the whole thing with the, I thought the whole thing with him having the hearing impairment, where he had the hearing aid, I kind of thought that was kind of dumb. And I get why they. And finally, because the whole movie I'm sitting there waiting, I'm like, why does he have a hearing aid? And then it gets towards the end of the movie, and you're like, oh, it's Bluetooth enabled, so Chucky can only talk to him. Okay,
right.
But it's 2019. Kids all have earbuds in all the time that are Bluetooth enabled. You could have just done that. But, right. I mean, there was a bunch of little stuff like that you're kind of like, I would have done a little different, but...
I thought they did a pretty good job, too, with, like, kind of capturing that same type of vibe as the original, but kind of more of a modern version of it. The whole idea of there's this single mom and her son, and they're kind of, kind of down on their luck, and, the mom's just trying to make ends meet, and she gets the doll for her son, and, I thought the Andy character too. It was a little weird, like how old he was compared to like
Yeah.
the original. Because here, this movie's about like a kid getting a doll, and the doll being like this evil character, and and here like these, what are they, like probably sixth, seventh grade, maybe sixth grade. something like
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I'm not sure, but they definitely weren't playing with dolls.
They weren't playing with dolls for sure. And then and then they have, he gets his doll for his birthday. And I'm thinking to myself, even as cool as it would be to have like an artificial intelligence type of doll, you sure as hell wouldn't want that at that age. There's no way.
And like taking it and like, hey everybody, look at what I got. Like not just as like close friends, but like the whole schoolyard of people. You're like,
right.
That was, and the other thing with him being like that was the other thing that I kind of thought was, well, first of all, the lady that played the mom, who, whatever her name is, she's from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And so one of my daughters watches Parks and Rec all the time. And so I've seen like probably 100 episodes of that show. That character that she plays on that show, and I'm talking about Aubrey Plaza, who's the actress I'm talking about. She's that way on that show. She's very kind of like, whatever, I don't care, kind of that way. But then in this movie, she's that way too. Like, Andy, come on, tell the truth, Andy. She was just that way. I mean, it was bad, horrible acting.
You really didn't like her acting, did you?
Oh God, it was horrible. I mean, the whole movie, and she wasn't the only one that was bad. I mean, there was a lot of bad acting in the movie, but she was the worst one. The thing that I didn't like about it was that it was his mom. Mm-hmm. They should have made it like the older sister or something.
You think so?
Yeah, because it was kind of weird. Like, okay, so you have this like 12-year-old kid or whatever he is.
Well, they said they kind of played the whole. She said something like,
they're like, I had a rough time when I was 16 or whatever. I'm like,
right,
yeah. So, but yeah, that's the thing you had. So you have this like 12-year-old kid and this like 28-year-old woman playing his mom. You're like, you should have like made him the sister or something, or like the aunt. I don't know. You should play it. It was just a little weird that it is like really young lady play. Which I mean, I know that happens, but
what did you think of the cop?
Again, he was kind of a doofus character.
Yeah, he was like what's the guy from Fright Night who played the cop in the original movie? Can't think of his name. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, it was kind of like that. Well, yeah, not even so much that. You know what actually he reminded me of is he reminded me of the dad who was the cop on that TV show that from like back in like the late 80s, early 90s with Steve Urkel on there.
Oh.
He kind of reminded me like of him, which was the guy from, and I mean, that was the same guy from Die Hard.
Yeah.
He was the cop in Die Hard. He kind of reminded me of that, kind of like a, just kind of like this dopey cop character, just kind of whatever.
I thought he was pretty cool. I liked his character. Kind of like
he was all right, but he was just kind of like kind of like a dopey cop kind of guy. It's kind of fun.
Kind of checking in on his mom in the apartment complex and trying to connect with this kid, and I thought they did a good job with him. Because then I'm like thinking, Chris. No, that's wrong. I think his name was Chris, the guy who played the cop in the original movie, the guy who played the main vampire in Fright Night. Anyhow. That cop was a little bit more distant, and it was more about like I think didn't he have kind of like a thing for the mom, or there was some kind of thing going on there. Where this one they played it a little differently.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember, but so I thought he was cool. I thought the idea of his mom was cool. There, and then the friends, like the other kids in the apartment complex or whatever. Or I don't even know if they lived there with him, but they,
it's kind of that's so. And again, I hate to keep ripping on this, but I'm not done. That was
you didn't like this movie.
So
did you?
They spent like there was so much time in this movie that was kind of spent on this whole like evolution of Chucky. If you notice, like because he starts off and he's kind of like broken and. Well, not really broken, but he's just not like working properly and stuff. And then, he gets to the point where he's kind of flawless. But then, like you have all these kids all of a sudden that Andy's friends with, which, I mean, they kind of explained how he was friends with the first two, but then all of a sudden he was friends with, like, this whole group of people. And the other thing that I thought, which I mean, I know that they're kind of trying to tie it back to the original movie, but the whole, you know, they kind of were like, hey, it's your birthday coming up, but here, I got you this present 2 weeks early. Well, you could have just left it out that it was his birthday. You could have just been like, hey, I got this for you. I know you wanted one, and I got it for free or whatever.
Right.
And then the other thing was with the one boyfriend, when he goes to get killed, then they're like trying to shove it in your face that, oh, wait, it was Christmas time too? What's going on? What?
Yeah, that was probably my biggest, one of the issues I had with this film was that timeline thing in terms of, like, you know, because if you make a movie, okay, it's Christmas time, you got to kind of give this sort of Christmas vibe throughout the whole film, and they do this whole, like, thing with the Christmas lights and the kill scene with that, which is, you know, that's okay if you're going to do a movie where it's like it's based in December and, you know, whatever, but, like, if that's like just one scene is kind of tossed in there out of the blue, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
It was weird because it seemed like the director or whoever probably had this, hey, you know, it'd be really cool if we did this scene, like, you know, with Christmas lights. So let's just say, like, that the Christmas lights were left on too long or something.
Well, yeah, and did you notice too? I mean, so he's like bitching that he's taking on these Christmas lights. So it's after Christmas, but then he's like in like a garden that has like crops in it.
Yeah.
Watermelon, and there was like corn stalks and stuff.
Right.
So then it's like, okay, so is it fall time? But you're bitching that you're taking on the Christmas lights, and then you're going to have to put them back up next week, or what? What's going on? Like,
right.
It was just it was just weird. Or you're like, so is it January 1st, and you still have like fresh watermelon in your garden? Where do you live at?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense at all.
And speaking of the watermelon, and again, spoiler alert, the one thing that I was kind of like, come on, is so when that dude's face was on the watermelon, which, first of all, he had teeth, which was weird, in the skinned face. But then, like, they wrapped that watermelon, which was, I mean, I get why they did that because they're kids and they're stupid and they didn't know any better. But then he, like, you know, to get out of trouble, so he gives this watermelon to his neighbor. And, you know, how long later is it when he's over there having dinner with her and he steals it? That had to have stunk by then, you would think.
Yeah, it would be wet and dripping. God. Oh, yeah, it would have been horrible.
Yeah, because she dropped it. Oh. It was so... There's like, I mean, there was a couple of those scenes where you're just like... and maybe it's partially because we paid $20 to get into the movie, to where you're like, so where if you were like watching it on Netflix, you could kind of overlook some of that stuff. You know, you're like,
right,
okay, you know, that's kind of stupid or whatever. But I will say, the best part of the movie though was, which again, this goes back to kind of tie it to the original Child's Play. I can't remember if we talked about this during our actual Child's Play episode, or if just me and you were talking about this. But if you watch the original Child's Play, the kid who plays Andy in that movie, like towards the end of it, there's a scene where I think it's when Chucky's on fire. Well, spoiler for the original Child's Play if you haven't seen it. To where, like, the kid, I don't know if he was that good of an actor or he was actually terrified, but there's like this pure look of terror on his face in the one scene. And you're like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. But anyway, to go back to the new Child's Play movie, there's a scene where they are messing with this watermelon face thing, and the one kid is like throwing up, and then he's like dry heaving. And again, you're like, that's some pretty good acting, because that sounds like that kid's actually doing that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And it was kind of funny. I mean, that was actually one of the funny things in the movie. But
what'd you think of? We gotta bring this up for sure. Is the whole idea that this was a Mark Hamill did the voice of Chucky?
I would like to know the story on how that happened, because I have a theory that Mark Hamill wasn't originally the voice of Chucky, and I'm sure we'll probably find out if that's the case. I'm sure that will come out eventually.
This is a theory, everybody. We're just
this is my theory.
Here.
Is this got to be, because you have to remember, like, the first trailer was out, and what was it, like 3 or 4? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. And Mark Hamill's like, "Hey, everybody, I'm the voice of Chucky." And then, so my theory is that the people at Orion were like, "This movie's not tracking as well as we would like to. We need to get something to get some more interest to people." And so, somebody was like, "Oh, we need a good voice actor for Chucky." And Mark Hamill's like one of the best voice actors out there now over the past, 20 years, I guess. And so my theory is that Mark Hamill was asked like 3 or 4 months ago, like, "Hey, would you be willing to do this for X amount of dollars?" And he was like, "Sure." Because how long would that take you to do? Really, a week to do the voice for that?
Yeah, probably wouldn't take that long. Think about it. Yeah.
And so let me ask you though, with him, what did you actually think of that, of the voice of Chucky?
It was weird the first time you hear the voice. I think we were sitting in the theater and you said, "Wow, that's weird. That's Mark Hamill." And to me, I was like, "Yeah, that is weird." Because you're thinking of, I'm thinking of Mark Hamill like sitting and saying those things. That it was kind of odd. But I thought overall it was fine. It was okay. I mean, the little song he did was kind of weird.
I was going to ask you about that.
That was a little kind of off, a little goofy, but I think it was okay. The one thing I know, I've heard some people say some mixed things about the design of the doll, and at first when I saw it, I was kind of like, "Oh, okay." I mean, it's basically sort of a take on the original Chucky. I mean, they really kind of keep it, the general, the red hair and the freckles and the same overalls and striped shirt and all that kind of stick with the original design. But then it's got this kind of goofy sort of face. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, how do you even describe it?
The face is weird. It's like it's almost like a cartoony kind of. It's almost like somebody oh, let's model this doll after, like, off of the cartoon that we have drawn up for it or something. It was really weird.
I've got a question. Was the doll CGI?
I would imagine there's probably...
It had to have been, right?
If not all of it, quite a bit of it was. Yeah, I mean, this thing was, like, walking around and, like, doing all the face stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of weird because it's like, I don't know... I mean, like, when you looked at it, it seemed like it was really there with them. So I never, which is kind of weird because I'm like I'm not a big CGI fan unless it's, done well. So apparently, at least in with this movie, I thought it was done pretty well because it didn't, it really seemed like it was present with them. And, one thing I thought was cool was all the gore was practical effects. They didn't do any CGI blood, or anything like that. It was complete, total practical all the way through.
Yeah, and the one thing with the gore too is there's really not. The kill count is relatively low.
Yeah, it's low, but it's got that kind of. That was the one thing I wanted to bring up was it's got that sort of modern, back in the 80s, the slasher films, the horror was very even Chucky was more connected to your typical slasher, so he was sort of there'd be strangulation or a stabbing or something like that. And in this one, they're a bit more creative, and I thought that the director probably had Saw in mind because there was a lot of these traps and different concoctions where it was more almost went down that torture porn area in some of the scenes.
Yeah, you could definitely see that there was a lot of paying tribute to a lot of different movies. There was definitely, there's just so many different things that you see that you're like, oh, well, this has kind of been done before in this or that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I was actually kind of surprised that the kill count was so low. And I was trying to remember if the kill count in the original Child's Play if it was more than this one or not.
It was pretty low too, though, wasn't it?
It was. That's where I was trying to...
Because remember, the first Child's Play was sort of a slow burn. It was kind of they really tried to build it up. It wasn't really a full-on slasher like the later ones were.
Yeah, this one kind of was sort of that way, because that's what I was kind of thinking. I mean, we were like an hour into it. I'm like, come on, somebody's got to die. Let's go.
Yeah, it did take a while.
I thought this guy was supposed to be evil. But that was the other thing, too, which I thought was kind of weird with the voice of Chucky, because I had thought that I had heard Mark Hamill say that how he had, when he was doing the voiceover stuff for this, how he went from that like really childish voice to like an evil voice. And I never really heard Chucky get like evil. I mean, there was a couple of times where like his eyes turned red and his face all scrunched up. But like you never heard him like in like, you know, the original Child's Play where he's all like, we're best friends to the end. I'm going to kill you, bitch. You know, kind of stuff. And like he never did that in this one.
Well, what about the detective's mom? Did he get kind of mean with her in a few scenes? Did he get that evil vibe going?
I didn't really pick up on it other than, I mean, you know, not in the voice itself. That's where I was, because I was kind of waiting to, because that's what I was kind of wondering to, like, when he does that changeover, like, are you going to have, like, Chucky turn into the Joker or something kind of a thing? But yeah, it was, I mean, it always just kind of had that same voice, which goes back to kind of what you were saying to begin with, to where really, I don't know that Chucky ever really thought that he was necessarily doing anything evil, really doing anything malicious. He was just out trying to keep him and Andy as best friends till the end.
Exactly. Yeah, he was. That was probably the biggest thing. Like if you're like a full on Child's Play Chucky fan, and you're looking for that sinister kind of that evil character, that's not really what you're going to get in this film, because this is a robot, you know, for one, and he's doing it because he's trying to build a friendship. So it's almost like, you know what it reminded me of too? And I can't remember which scene it was, but there was a part in the movie and I was like, all of a sudden it like popped into my head, but it kind of reminded me of Deadly Friend. And we did that episode a few years back, the Wes Craven film about the girl who gets killed and they bring her back as a robot. And it kind of gave it that vibe where it's like she would protect the guy that brought her back or whatever, and she'd go on and kill anybody that was like mean to him. And it kind of had that same sort of vibe where it's more like this, hey, I'm just trying to protect you and be friends with you kind of thing. Like that misunderstood robot type of storyline. So yeah, which is a huge, you know, transition for anybody who's like looking to see like your classic typical Chucky film.
So what do you give this movie?
I have to give it a thumbs up. I'm not a huge Child's Play fan, but I thought it was a solid remake. It kept my attention. I thought there was some funny scenes in it that were pretty good. I thought there were some tense scenes, especially towards the end. I don't want to give anything away, but it's not like, you know, it's not going to be something I probably will ever purchase, or I probably won't even see it again. And no, I'm not really looking forward to a sequel, but at the same time, I have to say for what it was, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up.
So I'm gonna do a split here on my review of it. So I'm gonna say, like, as I mentioned before, if this would have been a movie that you came across on Netflix and it wasn't playing off of the Child's Play angle, I probably would go with a straight thumbs up on it. Even though, like you had said, this probably isn't something, you know, it's one of those movies you'd watch and you'd be like, maybe I'd tell a friend to watch that, but I'm probably not going to watch it again, at least not on my own.
Yeah.
But for it being Child's Play and it being a remake of Child's Play, and I am actually, over the past couple of years, I've become a pretty big fan of at least the original Child's Play, the first one. I'm going to have to say, with that in mind, I do give it a thumbs down. It's not
down
anywhere in the realm of the original Child's Play.
Okay. So, I can see that, you know, like it's definitely not, you know, if you're a big fan of the original, then yeah, you're probably going to be quite disappointed.